What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today's video, we're going to be back to work on the Micro Gokart out of a mini bike frame. So if you haven't seen the first video I did on this thing, I suggest you go check it out. Kind of gives you the whole rundown on everything we got going on here and kind of what the plans are with this thing. And we actually started getting to work on it by actually shortening up the whole rear end. I think we took 3 or 4 inches out of that. So in today's video, I actually want to start working on the front, shortening up the front, and also figuring out the whole steering and spindle wise, getting these front wheels actually bolted on and having the front sort of like a roller. So the more I've been thinking about this, I kind of been planning on where these old existing foot pegs used to go. We're going to chop this off and actually have the spindles right here and have the steering all in front of this frame here, kind of having the steering shaft go straight up in between these bars here on the mini bike frame. So I ended up just kind of off camera whipping up some spindles just because I wasn't sure if I can actually make these, and they came out pretty decent. We just got to weld on a stud here so we can actually have the wheel bolt on there, and then another piece for the tie rod to bolt on. And then I was just kind of waiting on for some parts at that point, and what actually ended up coming in. So picked up some little 6 to 7 inch little tie rods just because they should work perfect, especially since I'm trying to keep the wheelbase on this thing 18 inches wide by 18 inches long. So that's kind of the plan with it. So these should work out perfectly. Then I picked up some pillow ball bearing bushing. I don't really forget what these things are called, but these are 5/8 inner bore, nothing too crazy, just a cheap little kit. Got a 4-pack of them. So the plan is to use these for the live axle and actually the steering itself. So the plan is to kind of have one kind of right around this section here, especially since these things are straight up. We're gonna have to angle it, have it shoot straight up between the bars there, and have a little plate so this thing can kind of bolt on there. I've been kind of deciding, do I want it on the inside here or on the outside, but we'll figure that out and kind of just go from there. So my idea is to kind of just chop this off and extend these things out, weld these little spindles on, and get the wheel poking out a little bit. Since this is only 10 inches wide, we need to bring it out a little bit. So I need to chop this down and actually measure this pipe so I can pick up the right diameter pipe, just slip right over that, weld that up, and then we can weld up the spindle. So I'm gonna get to work on that, chopping that down, and actually start figuring out how all the front end steering is gonna work, and get back with you guys when we got a plan. So we got the foot pegs kind of chopped down off the mini bike frame, and I kind of just brought it back in the garage and been sitting here staring at it, seeing how everything's gonna kind of work, and I think I got a pretty good idea how everything's gonna work. So now that we got this chopped down, I can measure this up. So it's 7/8 outer diameter, so I'm gonna get some pipe that's 7/8 inner diameter so we can kind of slip it right over, weld it to the frame, and also plug weld it as well, so it'll extend this out, and then we can just weld on our little spindles there. I'll still get the 1/2 inch nuts to weld onto these little sleeves there, and then also a little kind of piece to come off for the tie rod, and then we can actually bolt the front wheels up, no problem. So I'll kind of figure out the whole spindle situation. So now we gotta kind of figure out where the steering is gonna go. Some ideas to kind of have it sit in between these poles here, but I want to weld a pipe in bigger than the steering shaft to kind of replace it and kind of strengthen up the frames, bring this all together, and also kind of look like a fork, how it is on the front here, but a lot bigger, and the steering shaft can go right in between it all the way down to the bottom where it needs to go. So it's kind of an idea. So I think I'm gonna end up chopping the frame kind of right around here all the way down, and I end up finding this nice thick tubing wall pipe in my garage that I can actually use that actually fits the inner diameter of these bearings perfectly. So my idea is to kind of weld this pipe in kind of wherever I need to, right in here, get it all welded in, get it all supported and strengthened up in there, and then once we can, kind of have this bearing slip on the bottom of that tube, weld in some tabs so this can actually bolt on there, and then I'll give a good spot for the steering shaft on the bottom to actually have a bearing to ride on. And then for the top of the pole, thinking about welding or kind of designing a little 3D printed kind of bushing that the steering shaft will sit into, and it will kind of just spin inside of it, not really have too much friction, but have something to kind of support it on the top of the fork. So shouldn't be too bad. I think I'm gonna actually start chopping down the frame right now and start playing around with some ideas just to kind of get my head spinning and see what we can get knocked out tonight, since I don't have any tubing to actually knock out the spindles. So let's see what we get knocked out. I'll catch up with you guys here in a little bit. All right, so I wanted to give you guys some sort of update before I kind of call it a night at this point. So I ended up chopping off the whole front fork here and just got that off of the bike, and then I've just been sitting here mocking up the big old fork kind of pipe in there that we're gonna end up replacing it with and then beveling these edges so I can get this pipe to actually sit in there right. So I got the top all nice and notched so I can weld in there nicely. But going down, you can see we got a nice big gap in between these pipes here, and then an even bigger one here. So I think my idea is to just kind of weld up this top pipe here, and then kind of just start hammering everything into this main pipe here, weld it all up, and kind of just have it nice and solid at that point. And then it'll actually get a brace here in the bottom once we actually weld in this little bearing. If I can bring this up one hand so you can kind of see the idea of the main fork coming down to a bearing, and it'll have like a little tab coming off these poles for the bearing to bolt on there, and it'll give it a nice little kind of steering shaft going right up. So it should look pretty solid. I think I'm gonna wait for tomorrow to actually start welding everything up so I can kind of sleep on the idea a little bit and see if I come up with anything better. But so far I think this is looking pretty good, and it should come together pretty nice, and it's actually nice and short, exactly how I wanted. So everything's looking good so far. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow once we actually get to work, actually welding this thing back up, and actually have some metal to start working on the spindles as well. What's up, guys? So it's actually 2 days later from that last clip. I think I started this video on Tuesday, and it is now Thursday, and this video goes out tomorrow. So trying to get knocked out. I kind of was slacking off yesterday. Didn't really get anything done at all, but I did end up picking up the 5/8 shaft that we need for the live axle and steering shaft as well. And then I picked up the metal to actually slip over these tubes. But today I just started working away, getting the new kind of stem welded up in there. I think I've been calling this thing a fork the whole time, but it's actually a stem, and comparing it to the old one that I cut off there. Kind of line that thing up. Kind of hard to do with one hand. Oh, I think I actually have it upside down. But even just cutting this thing off, I cut off about 4 or 5 inches. So I'm pretty happy with how this thing's looking so far. I do still need to weld up the back sides a little bit. Just kind of tired of welding right now, and I still got to weld down here, which is kind of the plan. I'm trying to get as much knocked out for you guys as possible tonight. It is already starting to get dark, so trying to work away as quick as possible. Try to get it at least a roller in the front is the goal. So I would like to kind of finish up these spindles and actually get it kind of welded up on the front here. I did end up picking up the hardware that we kind of need for the rear and the front as well. Just kind of the main kind of bolts that are going to run through the wheels, so we can actually get these welded up, the little sleeves and the spindles there, and get the kind of extensions that we need to extend it out to where we need to, and get it all welded up. So I'm going to start working away on that. Just kind of wanted to give you guys an update since I'm kind of slacking on filming, since I haven't really filmed anything at all. I wish I kind of filmed some of this, kind of cutting off the fork and stem and all that, but it is what it is. But I'll catch up with you guys here in a little bit once we actually start working away on the spindles and stuff, and see what we can get knocked out by tonight. So I've been working away trying to get some spindles on this thing so we can actually bolt up the front tires finally. So I got one spindle all welded up, so just kind of welded a big bolt up to the sleeves. So now we have something that actually steers, and the wheel can bolt onto here. So that's looking good here. So I ended up moving to the other side to actually get the other spindle all finished up, but I ended up actually buying the wrong hardware. I ended up buying 3 of the same size bolt when 2 are supposed to be longer than the 2 other ones, like the one I already welded up. So I'll end up having to pick it up later, but I really want to see this thing actually have one wheel on it and at least kind of turn and see what it's going to look like. So I already started extending this side out. I think I extended it about 4 inches, and including the spindle and the wheel, we should be kind of extend this thing out about 6 inches kind of each side. So we should have about a 18 to 20 inch kind of width span between the wheels, and kind of have the wheelbase there and kind of equal it out from going to back to the rear. That's kind of the plan. So now that I got this side kind of tacked up and extended, I'm actually going to end up welding on this little spindle here. I got to set the caster and camber with the wheel on there real quick, tack this thing up, and actually see this thing kind of turn for the first time with a wheel on it. So I want to get this thing at least one wheel on it by the end of the night, and then we kind of finish up this video from here. So let's get to work, get a wheel on it, and finally see this thing actually have some steering. Alrighty guys, so I finally got that first spindle all welded on, and we can finally see this thing turn So I'm pretty hyped on it. I just threw a couple little tack welds on it. I gave it just a little bit of camber. It might be kind of hard to tell, but it's got just a couple degrees of camber, and I gave it just the slightest little bit of caster. It was kind of hard to give it caster, trying to weld, hold it all together at the same time. So I might try and tap it with a hammer, see if I can get a little bit more. At least when we do the other side, we'll kind of match it to this side to make it work at least. But other than that, she's looking good. This thing's not really built to go too fast, so we really don't need too much caster at the end of the day. But this thing finally has some steering on it at least, so slowly coming together. I'm pretty sad. I kind of scratched on yesterday at this point, but it is what it is. We'll catch up on some work kind of over some time. I'm gonna kind of call this video at this point because I gotta sit down, upload all this footage and edit it and get it up for you guys tomorrow. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Actually kind of just really shortening up the whole front of the frame, getting this whole new stem put inside of here, and actually getting our first spindle on there, seeing a wheel on this thing for the first time. So we're slowly getting there. We got one wheel down, so we just got to get 3 more on there. The other side really shouldn't be too bad. I just got to get the other bolt, and I can pretty much knock that out really quick. The live axle should be pretty much knocked out in one video. I just got to think a little bit more out of that. I just want to make sure everything's all in line if I'm going to make my own live axle, and it's not all wobbly all over the place. But other than that, don't really have too much work to do. It's just really just a lot of kind of nitty-gritty stuff and actually sitting here and making sure everything's in line with itself. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hope you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and peace out.